at the 𝐬𝐿O and College Baseball Advisors college recruiting webinar. Sam Burns, Wayne Mazzoni, and we're going to start going through these 10 things. I'm going to lead most of this talk, and Sam will chime in through his experience and anything that's particular to also, of course, the 𝐬𝐿O as well. And for those that are wondering, it'll probably go about 45 minutes. This is a webinar, as are aware of, but it means that those that are watching could only view and type in. So what I'll typically do is go through my presentation, and then the questions will happen more at the end. Sometimes that I did this talk last night live, and it was about a half an hour of questions, which there's always less when you're on a webinar than in person. But so Sam, I know you're hungry, but we'll get your food.
No, no, no. I can live. I can live. I can afford to skip a meal, I can tell you that.
All right, so I'll do this till our time comes up. I'll ask you a question that anyone else can answer if they would like without Googling it. Um, what is the most number of hits you can get in an inning without scoring a run, and how? And by inning, I mean the top of the first, not the top and the bottom. So in a half inning, in a 3-out inning, what is the most number of hits you can get without a run scoring, and then how does it happen?
Is it five?
It's not 5.
My thought process was like two guys thrown out on the bases and then three hits.
So I'll give you the hint because it eventually boils down to this. Everyone gets to that scenario. There's been 5 hits in the inning. The bases are loaded and there's 2 outs. How do you get another hit without a run scoring? Because 6 is the answer. So how do you get that 6th hit without a run scoring? I've heard all kinds of things, all wrong over the times I've asked this.
Someone misses a base.
No, because if you miss a base and then they appeal to that base, then it's a force and there's no hit. So
I'm stumped.
I'll ask you in one more way. Um, how do you get how can you ever get a hit without getting on base? As to the best of my knowledge, there's only one way you can get a recorded hit, and but it well, I shouldn't say not get on base. That's not accurate. It's a hit, but it's an out. I know that's tricky. Before I give it away and we get started, would anyone like to guess in the group chat?
It's not catcher's interference.
Nope.
That's because
It's not a ground ball to the outfield. They throw him out at the plate. That's a force play. It's not a guy lapping another guy on the bases because then same thing would be a force. So for time's sake, because I do want to start, the answer is the guy at the plate hits a ground ball. You overrun first base and you get tagged out going to second. No, because then all the runners, thank you, Scott, for participating, but all the runners would then advance. Um, and it would, yeah, the runner would either score in that situation. So no, that's not correct. The answer is the hitter hits the ball, hits the runner going between one of the bases. When you hit a runner with a live ball, it's an automatic hit and an out.
uh
There you go.
I knew it was something like that.
All right, so we're gonna get started. Thank you guys for joining us. Um, this should prove to be a really informative talk. I've given this talk, baseball specific one for quite a while. So I'm gonna lead the charge here. We have Sam Burns from 𝐬𝐿O. Sam played college baseball. We actually just recently did a podcast with together if you're interested in watching that. But what we're going to do here in this webinar format is I'm going to go through these 10 steps where Sam feels like jumping in. He's just going to jump in and talk about anything from his experience or from anything that applies specifically to 𝐬𝐿O. Any questions, you feel free to type them in whenever you want, but usually I'll get to those questions later on in the talk. But I'll go and refer back to that all the questions at the end, because once I start to play this slideshow and share my screen, I can't really follow along with the chat. I'm not that skilled. So we'll get started without, delaying any further. And again, your questions will be answered when we get there. So here we go. So it's basically 10 things that I want you to know to reach that goal of playing college baseball. And first thing is for kids, for parents to know what you're up against in this whole process, the sheer numbers of kids of what you're facing. So I always show this slide. The NCAA does this for both men and women's sports. Obviously, here we're talking baseball, which is right at the top of this chart. And before I go through these numbers, this does not count junior college or NAIA. So the numbers will go up. There's more opportunities with the junior college and NAIA. But if we're talking NCAA specific, they've tracked that there's roughly 500,000 high school baseball players. It will go up and down a little bit years, at some years. Around 36,000 college baseball players. 7.5% will go on to play at some college Division 1, 2, or 3 level. 2.2% Division 1, 2.3% Division 2, 2.9% Division 3. And personally, when I see these numbers, I pretty much divide those numbers in half, because to me, half are going as position players and half are going as pitchers. So right off the bat, I think kids need to realize and parents need to realize this goal that you have of playing college baseball is a challenge. And I always say this, for every Instagram post you see, there's 1,000 kids that are not posting, oh my God, I don't know what to do in recruiting. I don't know what camps to go to. Am I on the right summer team? I'm as good as another kid that committed, but I can't get exposure. What do I do? So yes, you always see the end result where a kid makes this great post and thanks his coaches and his parents and all that, but you don't see the struggle that others are going through in this recruiting process. So sometimes it makes it seem like everyone out there is having a joyous time in college baseball recruiting when they're not. In addition, most schools recruit the same class year after year. What does that mean? That means that typically coaches are recruiting one, maybe two catchers. They're going to recruit three, maybe four infielders. They're going to recruit three, maybe four outfielders. Maybe there's a guy that's a utility guy that can play both infield and outfield. Sometimes a two-way, but not a lot. And then somewhere around seven pitchers, depending. Typically more righties than lefties, but everyone has their style. And why do I bring this up? I bring this up because as both a college coach and now as a recruiting advisor, I've heard this so many times I can't even tell you. Well, I don't know if my son could play at Florida State or if he could play at Clemson or play at Vanderbilt, but should be easy to get recruited to play middle infield at Quinnipiac. Well, if they're recruiting three infielders in the 27 class, and there is 50,000 middle infielders in the 2027 class in the United States, boy, the odds are not great. So each year, the amount of opportunities for catchers for pitch, it's just small at each particular school. So keep in mind that each school is recruiting a certain number of players at each position a year. In addition, I've found this, and of course, VLOU is churning out as many D1 players as any facility going. But I found this. If your goal is, I only want to play D1. If I don't play D1, forget it. I'm not going to play college baseball. You're probably not going to work out. If you say, listen, I just want a good academic school, a good social fit. I would love to play D1. That is my goal. But boy, if it turns out that I'm at a D2 school or D3 school, but I still have a great experience, then you have a much better chance of having it work out. And I know Sam went to Lemoyne, which was a D2 school, which of course is now D1. And then once I finish this little thing, Sam, if you maybe want to jump in. So
Yeah.
these three screenshots are meant to and I'll tell you which schools they're from, but these three screenshots are meant to show anyone watching, listening now, how competitive Division III baseball is. And this is not a D3 talk. I wish everyone here, if they want to play D1, you get a D1 roster spot or an offer, God forbid, NIL money, which we'll talk about. But the D3 level is not the old school D3 level. So this one on the left is from the coach at Hamilton. And a text, I was talking about one of my kids, and he said if he wants to wait, he needs to be patient. He's fourth on our board. We have a right-handed pitcher, 87-89 from Ohio, a right-handed pitcher, 88-90 from Maryland, and a left-handed pitcher, 87-88 from New York ahead of him. The middle one is from Swarthmore, very high academic D3 school in Pennsylvania. And it looks like I screwed up. Well, not really exactly on the way I posted it here, but he basically said that the level of player looking at D3 these days is off the charts. I said, yes, it's the only real difference in a lot of kids between D3 and D1 is their physical strength, which, that's why VLOU is in business to get kids bigger, stronger, faster. And he said, absolutely. Every team we play has a guy 90 plus. That was unheard of 5 years ago. And then the last one on the right is from Eastern Connecticut. I wrote him, how many guys on your staff are 90 plus this year? He said 6 to 8. Why? We've got a pretty silly staff this year. The problem is they know they're good. Like that's just coach speak to say, my guys are good, but like I want to still push them. So there's a D3 Eastern Connecticut State that have 6, 7, 8 guys throwing 90. So the point is, to just recap this, and Sam, you're certainly welcome to chime in. This is a very, very competitive process. Probably the most difficult thing most kids will go through in their life to date, unless they had some horrible family tragedy, which God forbid. The recruiting process is the most difficult thing that they will tackle to date. Sam, you want to comment at all?
Yeah, I think this is such a good point on Division One or bust, and people don't realize, especially in the Northeast, and we're in our little bubble here, it's so much harder to play Division One baseball today than it was 5 to 10 years ago. And like you're displaying here, like your friend said, everybody in Division Three has a guy that's 90 plus now. Where when I wasn't in college that long ago, but when I was in my recruiting process, if you threw 87 miles an hour as a righty, you were pretty much guaranteed to play Division One baseball. And now, if you throw 87 miles an hour as a righty, like you're probably not even going to some of these top tier Division Three schools. And it's just evolved. The game of baseball has evolved so fast, and with these new rules and the transfer portal and everything, with what people don't understand is playing Division One baseball becomes significantly harder, especially at the higher levels. At the higher levels, the average age is what, 21, 22 years old. And now you're an 18-year-old kid trying to go to these power fours where they got 22, 23, 24-year-olds on the team that you don't really stand a chance. And that's even if you get in the door. So I would say like it is so much harder to play Division One baseball than it was just a few years ago. And I think what people underestimate is like, oh, I'm going Division Three, I'm not that good, or oh, Division Three is not that good, I shouldn't be interested in it. If you have love for the game, it doesn't matter the level. If you should go play. One, two, do not underestimate Division Three baseball. I promise you, if you came into our building and you watched some of our Division Three guys throw bullpens, you would be like, how in the world did this kid end up at this Division Three? And we're like, yeah, like, and by the way, he's not even the best pitcher on his team. He's the Sunday guy. So it's
Absolutely.
it's a different world today than we were dealing with when especially when I was playing and I'm sure when you were around as well.
Oh my God, look at all the gray hair. When I was playing, there was no recruiting. I mean, real, when again, I don't want to sidetrack because too much. I run all these cool podcasts with all these college coaches. Most of them are older. None of them got recruited. None of them went through a recruiting process. But really, since the advent of the internet, where things are much more able to be organized, the process has changed. All right, second thing, and I'm going to put all these on the screen now is, and I don't have to belabor this incredibly much, but I'm going to go through this quickly. I coach college baseball 30 years. Many times in my life, I've gotten a transcript from a kid where all of a sudden it was a non-starter. The recruiting process ended right there, no matter how much I like them as a person or a player. So number one is the better your grades are, the more options you have, right? So that's number one. Number two is coaches can be picky these days, right? Again, if you need one catcher in the 2028 class, and you got 5 kids that are pretty equal, but one of them you're worried about academically that you're gonna have is this kid gonna, fail out? Is he gonna be able to keep up with why recruit them? There's just other kids that can do the job with better grades, right? This is a huge piece is the better your grades are, the more academic money you get. Of course, we all want baseball money, but if the baseball piece doesn't work out, there goes your baseball money, but your academic money never disappears. So again, back to my days, I coached 2006 to 2022 at Sacred Heart, and I would get a transcript, which I'll talk about this more in a little bit, send it to admissions, and it would come back with admissible or not, but also an academic grant amount. So you'd say to the kid, hey, great grades. It looks like you're admissible to the school based on what they've told me, and you qualify for 17,500 in academic grant. And we haven't even talked baseball money, right? Of course, most people know, and this is depending on which school you go to and the coach's track record, et cetera. But baseball can get you into a school you otherwise not would not have been able to get into. So I always tell people sometimes they go, I can't get into Tufts, I can't get into Vassar, I can't get into Yale. Well, it doesn't mean you can have a 2.4 and get into those places. But if you're slightly below what they're looking for, but you have a skill like baseball, or for that matter, if you are in the choir, if you're in the band, if you have community service, like they're looking for people that are more than just their transcript. And baseball means you bring more to campus. So that's obviously a key point. And then admissions departments are looking for that you're trending up. If you're ninth grade year and sophomore, but as long as you're moving in the right direction, that matters a lot. Of course, if you want to go to a high academic school, they care about your course load. Like, are you taking honors and APs and challenging yourself? If that level is of interest to you, you obviously have to take a challenging course load. But last thing about academics, and Sam can jump in, is most of you have a plan of how you hit off the tee. Most of you have an arm care plan. Most of you have a strength training plan. And then it comes to academics and it's like a free for all. You don't have a structured way that you put down when assignments are due, that you're going to remove your phone from your room so you could study. Having a plan academically, it doesn't have to be over the top, but having some structure to that can absolutely help your grades move in the right direction. So to kids, to parents watching, I just encourage you to kind of treat academics almost the same way that you would treat your baseball development and map it out so that you're not left to just surf Instagram or do whatever you do for 45 minutes a night instead of studying for your chemistry test that's needed. So Sam, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think for kids that might see this too, I was the guy that I was like, I'll be okay. Baseball is going to get me into college. I won't really have to stress or worry about this too much. And I ended up losing, offers because of my academics. So, and it was just effort, right? Look, I was never going to be a Ivy League level student, but it was really effort, which was the difference in me not getting into some schools that I could have played at. And I think when it comes down to it, like we're talking about, it's so hard to play college baseball and you don't want to narrow the scope of where you can play. If anything, you want to be able to expand the scope of where you can play because of your academics. So, and again, for students, it just comes down to like being organized and effort. I think that's such a great point. Like you wouldn't go into a bullpen session or a hitting session without some sort of plan. Every athlete should have the same for your academics because what you don't want is to end up, being handcuffed on either where you have to go to school or not being able to go the Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 route and having to go to a junior college or a community college because of grades alone. Now, there's situations obviously where that's a great situation for a kid,
Yep.
but you don't want to be limited by your academics.
Good. All right. So this next one, again, I'm going to put all these up and we'll go through it relatively quickly because we'll get detailed on some of the other ones coming up. But the bottom line is many kids just don't go to college campuses, right? They just don't visit. And if they do, it's because their travel team played a game there. So they drove to the baseball field at Marist, but never actually saw the school. So especially if you're younger, whenever you have the opportunity to go visit a school, visit. I'm not talking about doing an admissions tour or doing an open house or visiting with a coach. I'm talking about literally driving around campus for 10, 15 minutes to see what you just think about the school. Because the more you start to know kind of what you're looking for, do you want to be in New York? Do you want to be in Connecticut? Do you want to be in the Northeast? Do you want to be down south? Are you only looking West Coast? Do you want to be in a city setting? Do you like, being in a place like a Columbia or a Northeastern? Or do you want to be in a rural setting? Does the campus size matter? Do you want to go to school with 2,500 students or 50,000 students? What do you want to major in? The more you can start to get into the college game, not even factoring in baseball. Like I talked to a kid last night. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going up to Boston for the weekend to see family." I go, "You should hit 3 or 4 schools on the way up. Go look at Salve Regina. Go look at Johnson and Wales. Go look at Brown. Then go to Boston, and then on the way back, you could hit Bryant, URI, and Quinnipiac on the way back. Whatever it is, you might not have to leave the car, but the more you start to a little bit figure out what you want. Even if you just said, hey, I think I want to be all of Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, and I kind of like 5 to 15,000 of student enrollment, and I'd like to be near a city but not in a city, and I might want to major in this. Well, now you could talk to both a guidance counselor. Every one of your high schools has either a Naviance program or a College Board program, which allows you to start narrowing your list. Because here's the deal. If you are a velo U guy and you throw 98 with command and good TrackMan numbers and a good secondary pitch, you're probably not even on this call. Because everyone's going to know about you. If you're a good pitcher with good finesse, 3 pitches for strikes, hard worker, holds runners, fields his position, throws 84, 86, unless you kind of know what you want and can reach out to schools and initiate the process, it's going to be really, really difficult. And I'll talk about why it's so difficult for college coaches to recruit, because most people think, oh, they just sit there and pick who they like and it's easy. It's really difficult. So I'm going to move off this one, Sam. I'm not even going to have you jump in on that one. I will have you absolutely jump in on this one here. So the big question now, we kind of start to get into some of the nitty gritty here. Oop, that went too far forward. I'll put it back up. Is how good are you at baseball? Right? So are you a high-level Division I player, Power 4? Are you a mid-level? Are you a low-level? Are you a D2 level player? Are you a D3 junior college? Are you Division 4? Are you Division 5? Are you not good enough to play college baseball? And how do you start to figure out, and you're never going to nail it perfectly, but if you don't do this right and you spend all your time and energy and effort and resources trying to get Purdue and Michigan and Indiana interested, when meanwhile you should be looking at schools like Haverford and Gettysburg and Franklin Marshall, etc., not only going to be wasting time, when you finally realize it and then go back to those other schools that are a perfect fit for you, they'll be done with recruiting. So these are all the things I suggest you do. And I try not to be mean when I say that parents are not the best judges of athletic talent. They're not, for 2 reasons. One, you love your kids, which is, I have kids, so I love my kids, right? And I probably see them in a better light because I'm the father. But secondly, you're not a college coach that's recruiting baseball players all over the country. You're not recruiting players in Texas and Florida and California and Canada, where they're really darn good too, and Latin America. Like, so you go, well, my kid's pretty good on Byram Hills High School and pretty good on Northeast Pride. Okay, awesome. Does that mean he's a Division I scholarship player? I have no idea, but you might think he is because he's pretty good at those levels. So I always start with this. Number one, ask your front line of coaches, your high school coach, your travel coach, your lesson coach. Obviously, if you're a Velo U player, you got to ask the coaches there because they have experience. They've done this. They've been through the ringer. They've seen this. So you have to say, hey, listen, coach, I'm a sophomore. I really want to play college baseball. What level do you think is right for me? And if they tell you, hey, I'm sorry to say, listen, you're working hard, but right now you're not good enough for college because your velocity is not good enough, or because you don't have a secondary pitch, or you run an 8.3 in the 60. Like, you should get that feedback. Number 2 thing is, again, I did this last night. We can't do a show of hands really on a webinar, but I said, how many of you kids have a friend that's playing college baseball right now? Everybody raised their hand. So I said, tap into that player who's in college that you know and you played with. If he's at Marist now, is that the right place for him? First of all, is he going, oh my God, I'm never going to see the field here? Did he get to Marist and say, I'm already the 3-hitter as a freshman, I probably should have done better? If I was at Marist, how do you think I fit into Marist? Kids know baseball. So I would absolutely ask a kid, if I had the opportunity, what he thinks of my talent level as it compares to college. Number 3, camps. A lot of college recruiting camps, which I'll talk about more in the next slide, they serve 2 purposes for the evaluation piece for you to figure out how good you are or your son is. Number 1, you go to the Penn State baseball camp. There's 80 kids there. There's 16 outfielders. You know pretty quickly where you stack up. Like, you'll know if you're one of the best guys there. You'll also know if you're one of the worst guys there, right? So getting that peer-to-peer thing, because that's your competition. Going to those camps helps you see what else is out there, and you get an idea of where you stack up. In addition, many of these camps give feedback. So they actually grade you out. They'll give you the metrics, and they'll say, hey, currently think you're a Division II player because you're 60 time. You're a Division III player. We like everything about you, but you showed no reliable changeup until you get that. This is the level we think is right for you. And the more of these things you can get, the better. And frankly, from my opinion, and Sam, we don't script this out. Sam might completely disagree with something I say, and it's his prerogative. I think you should go to these things earlier in your career rather than later. I think you should find out in eighth or ninth grade where you stack up, not to rush you or stress you out, but would you rather find out in eighth or ninth grade that you're not good enough, or going into your senior year that you don't throw hard enough, run hard enough, whatever? I think the earlier you can get it, the better. People like me, recruiting advisors, that's half of what I do. In person, evaluate video, talk to coaches and say, hey, listen, I've done my research. This is the level that I think's right for you. In addition to getting feedback from college coaches that have seen you and compiling what everyone else thinks. The two more things I'm going to go through, and then Sam's going to jump in for one of these. I know that Velo U, and Sam, you may want to discuss it, can have an evaluation system which basically measures somebody's strength outputs, basically their potential as a baseball player. And then you guys are able to use that to say, hey, these are what athletes at the various college levels do in these tests to give people a better idea, which once I finish this last one, I'll hand it over to you. I'll tell you right now, this one I underlined and exclamation pointed and bolded, I think is huge. I think you got to get out and watch college baseball in person. Yes, if you watch on ESPNU, great, but our sport looks much easier on TV. 92 looks easy on TV, right? You don't understand why guys can't hit, on TV, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're there in person and you see batting practice and infield, outfield, and get to see the guys up close, you start to get a better idea of where you stack up. And it could be for the good or bad. What do I mean? You might go up to watch UConn. UConn played a home game today in this nice weather. You might go up to watch UConn and go, hey, that's a top 30 program. I never thought I could play there, but I just watched today and I go, I think I'm as good as their third baseman. Awesome. You also might conversely go watch Vassar, Division III school, and think, well, that's a piece of cake. That's barely like my high school team, and get there and go, holy mackerel, that starter was throwing 92 today with a cutter. And realize, wow, I have a lot of work to do there. So watching in person is a huge thing. And Lord knows in our area, we have colleges at all the different levels. Even if you just pop in, watch pregame in 3 innings, it'll really, really help you. So Sam, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think watching college baseball in person is huge. I also think there's so much you can do online in terms of research. Like, hey, what are these guys' velocities? What were they doing exit velo when they were my age? And all these guys, you can kind of like, there's some trail of metrics that, if I want to play at Duke, everybody at Duke has some trail of metrics out there that you can probably find. And you can see how far off you may or may not be from those metrics. So I think that's a great way to kind of get a feel for where you're at. And I totally agree. Like you have to have some sort of, whether it be a coach or an advisor or someone that you trust that's been around the game and is still in the game, that can give you an honest evaluation of where you're at. And the younger that you are, the better that is, because number one, you just grow some awareness of like where you are in space and in the world. And number two, you make a lot less mistakes with your perception of where you are. I watch parents spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars going to camps at schools that their kids can never play at. And it's a shame, because if they just took that couple $1,000 and put it towards, a few Division III schools, like they'd probably have some offers. They would know a lot more about what they wanted in college, where they went to a bunch of these big schools when they were a Division III player. And it was because they thought they were of that caliber, and no one ever told them. They never had a conversation. They never were honest with not only themselves, but like no one was ever honest with them of, hey, this probably isn't a good idea. You're kind of a, this type of caliber player. So totally agree. I think the more communication you can have with, a coach, an advisor, or a trusted one, I think the better, and being around it as much as possible. We're lucky enough in our building where, we have some days in the winter where we have pro guys and college guys, and they kind of overlap with our high school guys. And, you watch a kid that's at Duke throw a bullpen, and he's throwing 93-mile-an-hour sinkers with banger sweepers off of it. And it's like, oh, that's what, ACC baseball looks like. So we're lucky enough to be able to expose our kids to it a little bit. But again, the more you can watch it, the more you can do your own research, the better idea you're going to have, better decisions you're going to make. So totally agree with everything here.
I love that. I wrote something down about the trail. Like, you're right. The Duke guys, the roster, you could go back and look whether it's on their social media or on Perfect Game or PBR. Like, a lot of these guys will have some info there. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
And
All
these
right.
kids are more tech savvy than us too. They'll probably find stuff from when these kids were in eighth grade.
No question about it. So I always say, after visiting some schools, starting to figure out what you like as a student and as a person, and then getting some assessment of what your baseball skill set is, ultimately, and some of you might have done this already, you should be able to have a list of schools. And the list could change, but unless you have an initial list of schools, it's really, really difficult. So I always say, create, whether you want to handwrite them or put them on a spreadsheet, Excel, Google Sheets, whatever the case is, and either just list them all down or rank, hey, these are my top five, my middle five, my bottom five, or put them in some kind of order. And the list could change where I've seen it many times. A kid as a ninth grader says, yeah, I want to play down south. And then 18 months later, he's like, I don't know if I really want to go that far away from home. All right, your list is going to change because you had all Southern schools. You said you want to be an engineering major, and then you decide later you don't want to do that. You want to do, biology. Your list changes. You grow, 5 inches, put on 30 pounds, pick up 8 miles an hour on your fastball. Your list changes. So, but without having a starting place, I think it's really, really difficult. So I do stuff like this. This is not like science, but I thought just to show people. I create the list and I kind of have like where I create all the metrics and have all the way that I track how the player's developing, the video, et cetera, his development plan. And then I create, his list of schools. He has the notes of what he's been communicating to with the college coach. I have my notes too, and we're giving feedback. So sometimes the feedback is negative. I might get a feedback from look at this one right here. URI a no on catchers. So this is an older kid. I didn't put on a recent kid so that anyone would know. But like, this kid's a pretty good player. I talked to URI. I sent him film, and they said we're all set with catchers. So like, there's nothing else to be done, right? That's off the list. But then other schools were interested, and this kid wound up going to Dickinson. So like, bottom line is, unless you're formally tracking this, it's really, really difficult to manage. The same way any adult on this webinar is managed the job search, right? You don't just like haphazardly go through a job search. You're pretty structured about it. If you want to work in marketing in Westchester at a marketing agency, you have a list of places that fit, and then you go about trying to, get yourself introduced to them, which is what we'll talk about next. So you need to have a list. So I'll keep going here, Sam, and you can then jump in when you want. So let me first say this because I alluded to it before. Recruiting is the hardest part of a college coach's job. Everyone would just much rather get good players, never have to be on the road all summer, and just get good players and just coach and not have to do any of it. But that's called pro ball, where the players just show up, right? Scouts do that job. So most schools have three, maybe four coaches doing the recruiting, but it's a big country. There's hundreds of thousands of kids playing. Every weekend that you have a tournament at Diamond Nation, well, there's also a tournament at NEB and Baseball Heaven and at, War at the There's a million things going on and a million travel teams. So it's very overwhelming for college coaches to sort through the sheer number of players that are out there. So what I'm trying to go over here is explain to you things that you should be doing to bridge the gap between where you are at your high school and the college coaches that are on your list. Of course, the number one thing is to be seen live and in person. So anytime you're communicating with a college coach in any way, you should have your high school schedule. You should have your summer schedule. If you're emailing a coach, if you should put that out on social media. I'm just got my high school schedule released. Just got my summer schedule released. So now if a coach happens to be at Diamond Nation at the same time as you are, now they could say, hey, I know this kid's on field 5 at the 4 o'clock game, and I'm going to go watch. Coaches don't just show up to events and go, I'm just going to walk around and find out who I'm looking for. They go in with a plan of who they're going to see ahead of time. So all the things that we're talking about are ways to get the coach to see you in person. Camps, Sam alluded to it before. I take camps and I put them into two buckets because I'm very well aware, having a son playing college baseball who got 10 million camp invites, that it's very overwhelming about what to do with the camps. So this is the way I make it easier. I put the camps into two buckets. One is the showcase camp, and one is the college prospect camp. I advise everybody to hit one big showcase camp a year. That could be show ball, that could be head first, that could be I-95, that could be best in the US. It's a bigger event, a lot of kids, but they have 50, 60 college coaches, but they're paying those coaches to be there, which means they will be there. But the negative is that it's also expensive. Those camps are generally $1,500. So that's why, listen, if you have unlimited budget and you want to be able to go to a whole bunch of them, God bless you. But I think going to one of those is crucial because there might be a couple of schools that see you that you didn't have on your list, and it turns out that's a great fit for you. So I like the idea of one bigger camp per year, but I think it's much better once you have a list to say, hey, I like 5 Patriot League schools, 3 Ivy League schools, and 4 NESCACs. Okay, look to see who has camps, whether it's summer, winter, or fall, and go directly to those camps. Here's the benefit of going to the Holy Cross baseball camp, for example. Number one, the whole coaching staff is going to be there. So instead of normal days where they're all spread out, the whole coaching staff is going to be there. Number two, you'll get to see the school. You get to see the facilities. You'll get to see how the coaches actually coached and run the camp. You'll meet players on the team, right? And coaches are not allowed to do tryouts. This is why people think, oh, camps are just money makers. A coach would love to say, hey, dude, just come on up on Thursday. We'll put you in team practice and we'll tell you whether we think you're good enough. It's not allowed. This is why prospect camps happen in the first place. Most college baseball programs have probably about a quarter of their players directly from their own prospect camps. And even if it's sometimes they've seen a kid at other events or other games, they still want to invite them to their own camp. So now they can work them out in the way they like to work guys out. So they could do drills and see how the kid reacts. So camps are always going to be a big part of this puzzle. It's 2026, the modern world. You need video these days. You must have video. In a perfect world, your video has metrics. TrackMan, pocket radar, 60 times, exit velocity, whatever it is. It's not the be all end all, but boy, it will really help because let's face it, sometimes on a video, you have a swing. It's hard to tell how hard you're hitting the ball. So, and I have a very specific way that I like a video to be done. I'll save that to the end if people want to ask about it. I also have recorded a video on my YouTube channel that says this is exactly how a college coach wants a video and what it should look like. But video is crucial. And I know there's a variety of platforms for recruiting. And I'll just say this, I hate them all. I don't like NCSA. I don't like Field Level. I don't like Go Big Recruiting. I don't like PB. I don't like any of them. I like Twitter. Okay. Twitter, I like it because it's free and it's where the coaches really go. Coaches don't have to log in and look for videos and remember passwords. They can just go right on Twitter, follow you, and continue to see updated video. So in a perfect world, your best video, your highlight video, if you will, is on your Twitter and it's pinned to the top. So anytime anyone comes into your Twitter page, they see your video right away. All right, we're going to go through 2 more things here and then we'll let Sam jump in. References are huge. That reference could be anyone that's legitimate in the world of baseball. Your high school coach, your travel coach, one of the Velo U guys, someone like me, a scout, an alumni, a former pro. Like, I always make this goofy example, but I think it works. Like right now, if on this webinar I said, hey, I'm an unbelievable guitar player, and I know you having a party at your house Friday night. I'll come play it if you give me $5,000 to play the party. Like, who would hire me now, just me talking, to play the party on Friday night? Nobody. But if I put a video out or you watched me play and I grabbed the guitar, you might go, oh, he's good. But what if I could give you references that say I'm good? That might help. But guess what? What about your best friend in the world says to you, I've seen him in person play guitar. He's absolutely incredible. You got to get him for the party. Then you're going to hire me for the party. So references matter and they open the door to a lot of things. So all of these things, camps, video, references, and obviously games are a crucial piece. Last thing here, because I talk to most kids and I say, what are you doing for recruiting? Their only way that they go about recruiting is emailing coaches and filling out questionnaires. Let's start with the questionnaires. I coached 30 years. I never saw a questionnaire. Like, even though every place that I worked at had questionnaires, we're not sitting there going, oh, gee, I wonder what question, we need a shortstop. I wonder what came in the questionnaire box today. It doesn't work like that, right? And emails, yes, some coaches will respond to emails, but some programs get so many emails and they just either blanket respond with a secretary or a grad student who's just going to put a generic thing, or they're just going to delete it. So I always say if you do email a college coach, in your subject box really needs to be something pretty cool, like 2027 6'7" runner, 99 mile an hour exit velo, 3.9 GPA. All right, that might get some, like whatever. 6'3", 220 outfielder, ultimate utility guy. Velo U client gained 12 miles an hour in a year. Something, because otherwise it's too many of them. So Sam, I'll turn it over to you for anything you want to add here.
I totally agree. If you're going to go the email route, um, the subject of the email has to stand out, and it has to stand out with a metric that you have that stands out. So that's the harder route for sure. I think the best thing that you said here is the specific camps for schools and like having a list and a plan of attack there. There's no better way to get in front of a college coach for a school that you want to go to than to go to their camp, right? They have all their coaches there. They're going to be attentive to you, and that's probably the environment where they're going to be able to see you the most with the least amount of other kids around you. So I'm a really, really big fan with that. And then also, again, Twitter X is unbelievable with this stuff. All college coaches are on it. And especially, it's a little different pitching versus hitting, in my opinion. I think pitching metrics matter more than hitting metrics, right? You can have great exit velo and all this other stuff and get in the game and you got a vision problem and you can't see. That's, it's different with metrics where if you throw 95 miles an hour, you throw 95 miles an hour. So, but getting those metrics out there, getting those videos with the metrics out there, I think is such a big part of this as well.
Awesome. All right. So now we go to here. I have to click it like 5 times. Here we go. So then the goal, I'll just move this off first. Once you're doing these things, and again, I'm very aware that in this whatever hour time we're going to be, I'm giving you a lot of information. You don't get on this webinar and go, oh yeah, I'll just do all this tomorrow. No, like this is 6 months worth of work, right? But you need to get feedback. Again, I meet with a lot of kids on Zoom and I talk about where they're at and everything. And oh, I went to this camp and I went to that and I'm on this team and I like, okay, I say, well, what do people think of you? What are you hearing about your game? And they go, I've never heard anything about what people think. And I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, how do you get where you're going unless you know what people are thinking about you? So ultimately, as you're doing some of these things, playing on these teams, going to camps, putting out video, getting people to call for you, you need to get feedback. And obviously, you're hoping the feedback is they like you, they call you, they start recruiting you, they watch you, they bring you for a visit, they offer you, awesome. But if the feedback is negative, here's what you got to do. Number one, you got to get better. The number one way, Sam, I'm sure will stand on a soapbox and agree with me on this. You want to make recruiting really easy? Get crazy good. Get really, really good. When you're really good, recruiting gets easier. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. There's a lot of nuance to our game, high IQ, good mental game, all that stuff. But the options to get better. So that might mean you got to sleep better. That means you got to maybe eat like you're supposed to and gain weight. You got to follow through on your lifting, program. Obviously, if you're at Velo U, great. You could be remote, but sometimes you can't make it there. Are you going 2 days on your own and not doing anything because you can't make it in? Are you actually running a lot? It's to me the big, and I know we could talk all day. We could do our whole webinar about how to get faster. But to me, it's a combination of three things: strength, running technique, and then actually running a lot. If you want to get faster, you got to run a lot. And a lot of kids don't run a lot. They love lifting, they love hitting, they love throwing. They don't run a lot. So you got to get faster. It's a huge separator. And then, skill. Can you hit? Can you field? Can you throw? Up your velocity, up your command, get a new pitch, etc. So get better. Or your option is to adjust your list of schools, which is no harm, right? If you're hearing from Yale, Cornell, Columbia, and Princeton that you're a really nice player, but they just have better guys ahead of you, well, you could keep beating your head against the ground, right? Or you could get better, or you could still go to those schools and try if you can get accepted or play club ball somewhere. Or you could say, you know what? Middlebury's pretty awesome. Emory's pretty awesome. Johns Hopkins is killer. Haverford's great. Swarthmore's great. You adjust, right? So I see a lot of kids not making any adjustments, and it's really frustrating because they're getting feedback and really not changing anything, which I guess we'll say is kind of the definition of insanity, as they say. So getting that feedback is crucial. And again, we talked about it the earlier. I don't want to keep referring to these podcasts, but I did one with Robert Woodard, who's the head baseball coach at Charlotte, who was like, I think, one of the all-time winning leaders at UNC Chapel Hill as a pitcher. And he said the best thing he ever did was in seventh grade, he tagged along with some buddy of his and went to these, I like Florida State baseball camp. And he was like, everyone else is older than me, and boy, what a wake up call to see like, and he got the bug at that age, you know. So again, I always say that without rushing recruiting, your development should start as early as possible. I think that's the last that's on this page. Sam, any comments before I move on to here?
No, I totally agree. And there's an old saying, if you don't like it, get better, and play better, get better. And I think with this too, when you're talking about um, you know, increasing the level of play that you can get to at the next level, the younger you start at, the better. If you start at 13, 14 years old, we can really improve strength, speed, skill, all that stuff over an extended period of time. At 18 years old in a 6 month window, way harder to improve, right? So the more time you can buy yourself, the sooner you can start that skill development, that overall development, the better off you're going to be.
Totally agree. All right. We have a couple more to go through. This is my least favorite, but I always want to be thorough to cover it. So I'm just going to make sure I explain this pretty simply. If you're playing at the scholarship levels of college, Division One and Two, you have to be certified as an eligible athlete when you graduate high school. All of this got much easier in 2023 when the NCAA finally waived an SAT or an ACT component, which was basically a combination of schools making boards test optional, but also COVID. So it used to be a whole sliding scale between your GPA and your SAT or ACT scores. They've now changed that. So all's it is, but I want to be thorough because there'll be 30 kids in the country that don't do this right and blow their whole opportunity to play college baseball. In Division One, when you graduate your high school, or your son graduates the high school, you need to have taken 16 core courses that your high school designates part of the core curriculum. English, math, social studies, and science that actually starts in the ninth grade. So when you graduate, you need to have taken those 16 courses. You can't take 15 because you can't make it up after you graduate. There's no summer school allowed. And your GPA could be no lower than a 2.3 in those 16 courses. I'm not talking overall transcript. I'm talking just those 16 courses. In Division Two, same thing, 16 courses, a minimum of a 2.2. In Division Three, it's different, which I'm going to now refer to the bottom right of my screen here. If you're, and this is ideally a junior year activity to do what we're talking about now, go to the initial eligibility clearinghouse and do one of these two things. If you think you're playing Division Three baseball, or not sure if you want to play college baseball, or not sure what level, you should create a profile. You fill out a lot of information, but you do not pay any money. So you're just in the system without having paid for it. If you know you're going to play Division One or Two, or think you are, or already being recruited, you create an account and you enter a bunch of information. You pay about $95. Your high school guidance counselors will get notified. They send your transcripts to the NCAA, and then a college coach gets your clearinghouse ID and is able to enter it into his computer to see exactly what your grades are. So I'm going to move off this one quickly. I'm just going to recap. Your grades matter. The core courses matter. Every high school, when you go to take courses, usually has an asterisk or some mark that says this qualifies as an NCAA core eligibility class. If you have any questions, every high school department, a guidance department in the country now has a person in charge of this eligibility stuff. So if it's not your son's counselor or you as the player, you could find out handles that. But most of you will cruise through this formality, this step, this red tape step, if you will. But if you don't get it right, it's going to be a problem. You will not be able to play your freshman year in college, Division One or Two. All right. we move on to this, and I'm going to try to make this pretty, pretty clear and quick. But this is how every coach in the whole world does things, no matter what the sport, but obviously we're talking baseball here. Once a college coach knows he likes a player, he asks for the transcript. Happens every time. So if you're the athlete or your son, I would absolutely have an unofficial copy of my transcript on my phone at all times if I'm of recruitable age. Okay. So when a college coach says, "Hey, can I get your transcript?" you could just text it right back or email it or whatever the case is. So the coach will get your transcript and they do a pre-read. A pre-read is getting your name, your address, your phone number, your social media accounts if you list them, what year you're going to be entering. Are you an incoming freshman? Are you a transfer? Are you a scholarship candidate, a preferred walk-on candidate, a true tryout candidate? What's your intended major? Are you honors eligible? Have you done community service? Have you been disciplined by the school or by the police? Like, it's pretty thorough. And a coach sends this into admissions, and admissions turns it around and says, if you're admissible or not, they're not saying accepted or denied because you have not applied to the school, which happens in your senior year. They're saying, hey, as of March 4th, junior year, you will look admissible or not admissible. Okay. And the coach at that point will tell you a couple of other things. Number one, I'm going to go to number 5 right here now before I get back to 3 and 4. Again, I referenced it before earlier. Is there academic money that goes along with that, right? Some schools have 34 full scholarships, which again, I'll talk about. Many don't. The ones up here, Siena, Marist, Fairfield, Sacred Heart, Quinnipiac, Central Connecticut, UMass Lowell, no one's at 34 scholarships that are allowed in the big school. They just don't have the budget. They don't sell tickets. That's not pop. So if you're going to be a scholarship baseball player at those kind of schools, it's probably going to be part academic package and part baseball package. And a coach at that point should at least be able to tell you if you qualify for academic money. Secondly, and I'm going to go over this very quickly, but it's important to know, if you're, for yourself or your son, is an Ivy League level student or the NESCAC, the highest academic conferences, you should Google the academic index. There's a formula called the academic index that is, you can research, that those conferences use in order to keep recruiting fair school to school. So not one year Princeton goes, you know what, we're going to crazy lower our admission standards to get in all the athletes we want, and we're going to start crushing everybody in the Ivy League. It's not allowed. So if you're a high academic student, please write down to Google what the academic index is, because you need to know and speak that language, not to mention calculate where you fit into that whole thing. And then, of course, a coach will tell you at that point what what you might have to actually do to be accepted or where he sees you. Some schools call it like an A band or a B band or a C band. A band means you're our top recruit. We're going to put pitchers and catchers and shortstops in this thing. They might call you a B band where, hey, we don't desperately need outfielders this year. So we're going to put you in. And their ability of where they rank you on their interest level determines your likelihood of getting in. So this is something that a coach should bring up and talk to you about, their ability to help you get accepted into the school. And as I alluded to earlier, this might be your ticket to get into a school that you otherwise were not able to get into. Last part on this, and then I'll see if Sam has it, because again, we're going to go further on scholarships after this. Actually, let me do it right now. And then Sam, you could pipe in. This here is I do this at every one of my talks because I get hired at high schools and I give a general lecture across all sports. So I figured I'd keep this up in case anyone on has a sister or a daughter that plays one of these sports. So here's all the sports that have scholarships in college and the amount of scholarships allowed at the Division I level and at the Division II level. And I can go back to this if you want. Again, I'm recording this. Anyone that registered for this will get the recording. If you want the PowerPoint, just message me and I'll send it to you. But here's the number for the men. So you see that it's the 35 and 9. Division II has not changed. But realistically, this 34 number is actually confusing because a lot of this is changing. A lot of this has changed very recently. What colleges are now doing, it's called you either opt in or opt out. What does that mean? If you opt in, you're saying, we agree to bring our roster down to 34. So we're limiting our roster at 34 players. but every one of them could be on a full baseball scholarship. That means tuition, room, board, and books. So, yes, the big boys now give out, if you look up a game of Florida State playing Miami, everyone on both sides of the dugout's there for free. And there might be NIL money, which we could talk about. Usually, NIL money does not go to high school kids coming into college. It goes to kids transferring schools or money to stay at the school that you're at. Okay. But back to the schools I referenced before, most of those are either at the old 11.7 that it was till they lifted it to 34, or maybe even under that. I know many colleges don't get close to 11.7 baseball scholarships. And when you say why, again, it's back to it doesn't produce revenue. When you go to a game of watching Hofstra play Stony Brook, there's 150 people there with no tickets. When you go watch Mississippi State play a home game, there's 13,000 season ticket holders. It's a very different environment. So there's become this opt-in and opt-out at the Division I level, and that's basically the new thing. And there's some more nuances to it, but Sam, anything you want to add on here?
No, 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 not too much. I just think parents and kids don't understand like how, again, ridiculously hard it is to even get to the point of NIL. It is that is mainly for the people that have been there, done that, proved it at the Division I level for a while before they get any of that.
Exactly. Yeah. NIL money goes to kids going to a new school, or let's say hypothetically, let's say you went to LSU, which means you're an unbelievable baseball player, and you got a scholarship, great, but the coach, didn't think you were going to play much as a freshman, and all of a sudden now you become the closer. Well, if you put into the portal, you would get a lot of money. So the coach, before you even do that, will say, hey, listen, you had a great year. We want to keep you here. And then start talking about what that NIL money is. But it's still mostly a football, basketball thing, but it is certainly trickling down to the other sports. And the big time baseball programs are, yes, paying players to play. 100%. 100%. All right. Last slide right here is I like to put this. I don't like to put the slide on because I think I just trying to tell you how to make a decision when some of you might have a kid that's in ninth grade, 10th grade, forever away. But the reason I like to put this in there is that there's two main times of stress for kids in recruiting. One is at the beginning when people seem to be getting interest in committing and nothing's happening for you, and you're like, oh my God, it's stressful. But the other is when you are being heavily recruited, in fact, maybe you've gotten offers with deadlines and you have no idea what to do and you can't sleep because it's a hard time making this big life decision. So I always say if all things are equal, I would do one of the following. I'd pick the better academic school or the school that's better for my major. I would pick the school that is cheaper out of pocket or is giving me more financial aid. I might pick the school where the coach actually is showing you the most love and seems to actually you have a best relationship with. What I always advise you to do, I think this is crucial. All the guys that I work with in recruiting, before they commit to a school, I have them talk to kids that went through the program, whether they graduated or whether they're in there now, because that's the kid that can best tell you what life is like in that program. As much as you could talk to the coaches, et cetera, and watch things, you got to talk to kids in the team. And then, of course, going up and making a true visit where you go to class and you go to the cafeteria and you watch a practice or a game and you go to the dorms and you go to a concert on campus. If that is possible, to go spend time, whether it's an overnight or even just a few hours, it usually sheds light on what the actual best, move is to make. So that's it for me. The next slide just has my contact information. Sam, before we open it up to questions, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, if I could, I think definitely always have to keep in mind like what's your best fit academically for life after baseball. Obviously, cost and financial aid always will matter. I think those two are extremely important. The third one that you have, where a coach is the most interested, I think another way to say that as well is where do I have the best chance to play right away? Right? There's a difference between getting recruited and going to a school and then getting opportunities to play right away. I know a lot of kids that go to college and they don't get a chance to play till their junior or their senior year. And then there's kids that go to college and they throw 30, 40 innings out of the bullpen as a freshman. That's a way better situation for most people. Most people like baseball more when they're playing. So,
Okay. Yeah.
I would say go somewhere where you're definitely wanted by the coaches and go somewhere like you have a chance to contribute right away. And then the other thing I guess I would potentially add to this too is, and this is a big part of talking to like current and past players is, hey, if something happened where baseball was removed for you, would you still be interested in going to this school? And I think that's an important part of it too, is like if outside of baseball, would this place be a decent fit for you? So, but no, all in all, totally agree
No,
with you.
that
This
that's
is
beautifully
fitting well.
said. You're right. Yeah, because the reality is not every kid lasts 4 years playing baseball. I'm sure you played college baseball with some guys who played since they were five and then they stopped playing in college for one reason, injury or whatever else it was, right?
Yep.
Did they like, the school that they're at? So I didn't do this for you, Sam. This is just my cell, my email, and my website. Sam, do you want to just talk about how people can reach you if they need to?
Yeah, yeah. If anyone wants to reach me, I'm not too hard to track. My email is super simple, sam@velouniversity.com. And then as well, I'm all over social media, unfortunately, as much as I hate social media at times. Shoot me a DM. I'm usually pretty good at getting back to those.
All right. So, however you'd like to do it, if you want people, and I encourage you to. Again, last night it was a lot of questions because there's a lot to nuance over this. But while you certainly can reach out after this if you want, if anyone wants to type in a question in the chat, you could type it to everyone. You could type it to just Sam and I, but please feel free. And if you don't know what to ask, I could give people some things that they could ask if they want, if they're stuck. Could be about multi-sport athletes. It could be about two-way players. It could be about reclassing or post-gradding. Um, could be anything that you're interested in.
I'll ask one. When do you think's a good, or what would you think was a good situation for a kid to take a post grad year?
So, start with this. I think there's a big difference in a decision between reclassing and post-gradding. Okay. So post-gradding, of course, means you stay where you've been. So you stay at your school and then you just do an extra year. Um, I think there's a couple of reasons. And I'll talk about the post-grad, I mean, the reclass in a minute. I think with the post-grad, the reasons to do it are you're physically not strong enough. So you just need weight, you need to mature, you need to get stronger faster, and then it makes sense absolutely, right? Of course, you could say I could get my skills better, but usually your skills get better when you get stronger. So it definitely makes sense if your body's not where it needs to be, first of all. Sometimes kids need to raise grades, and it's a possibility they go to a school where they have an opportunity to raise their grades. I usually typically say that I would have someone post grad if a college coach tells me, hey, I like the kid as a 27. We just have no spot for him. But if he becomes a 28, I would offer him. So, like, I like that. The reclass is where obviously you do this earlier, and some of that can make sense. What I don't like about the reclass, and then also what I don't like about it is, where'd you go? You went to Fox Lane, right, Sam?
I did, yes.
Okay. And you went to school with kids that you went to your whole life, right?
Yep.
Are these your buddies, your boys?
I've had the same group of best friends since I was 5.
There you go. So my
Yeah.
point being, if you would have left in 10th grade only for the purposes of baseball, would you have regretted being missing out with your buddies?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And that's why I'm not. Now, if you said to me, hey, I reclassed, I didn't fit in at Fox Lane because of this, that, and the other thing,
No.
and I left. Okay. But
Yeah.
like that's my take on it because I
Yeah.
think you can
So
accomplish the same thing with a post grad.
100%. And I still help coach over at Fox A, and I tell our kids all the time, it's like me and my friends will sit around a campfire over the summer and we'll talk about our junior and our senior years in high school when we were playing high school baseball. Those are memories that you can't really will never go away and you can't really get back. So I agree. I
Agreed.
definitely agree there.
All right, so a couple of questions here. One is, what is more important, your high school team performance or your club team performance? Awesome, awesome question. Sam might have a different opinion. I go back to equal. I think they're equally important for a couple of reasons. I think, most coaches like high school. Most college coaches like the high school environment more because what's the goal in high school? To win. You're trying to win a state championship, whatever the case is. Um, Obviously, summer gets more coverage because the college coaches are out there, but we also know travel club ball is more about you getting exposure as opposed to winning a game, right? So they're both equally important. I think college coaches will, even if they can't get to games in person, will track what's going on with your high school season, especially for kids that they know about. That's part of what I consider my job to be for my 27s, is that any time a kid has a pitching outing or a good game, I'm telling the college coach, hey, check out what he did in high school. Here's the game changer stuff. Here's all that. So I think they're equally important. It's never going to change that summer travel gets more coverage, but I know many college coaches that will absolutely always talk to the high school coach to find out about a kid and his personality because they know he's probably, if you will, quote unquote, more genuine because he's not getting paid to play, if you will. So, Sam, you want to answer that at all?
Yeah, I think it's really important to be consistent over both of them. And I think the reason for that is, again, word of mouth. I think a lot of these college coaches like to do their due diligence on kids that they're recruiting. And you want, hey, this kid's a hard player. He's runs the bases well, puts the ball in play, X, Y, Z. You want whatever your high school baseball coach is going to say about you to align with what your summer ball coaches are saying about you to align with what the coach is actually seeing. So yeah, a perfect world, I think, and this is where like skill development comes into play. Like the more the more your skills are kind of defined, and the more that you continue to work. If you can show a longer body of art of your skill set, and the more consistent that is, I think the better off you are in the long run.
All right. And then there's two questions that are kind of related. They're about camps. So I'll say it here and see if this makes sense. My advice is to go to a kind of recruiting camp as early as possible for the purposes of A, getting it out of your system. Like some kids get nervous at these, so go to get used to it. But number two, it could be motivating to see the competition and also to get feedback. Like I think the early and I'm not saying go in ninth grade to get an offer, which you can't. I'm saying go in ninth grade to say, hey, I've got to work on this, and I realized it today by being at this camp. And not only did three college coaches tell me if I don't block better behind the plate, I'm never going to get recruited. That's huge, right? So I think going earlier is better for development. Maritza, to your question, if you're going to say, hey, I can't send him any year, I would pick the junior year. No question about it. The junior year is when more recruiting is going to happen. Yes, it's good to go sophomore year, but this is something I didn't mention and I probably should have. The timeline is different based on the level. The Four programs are going to offer and commit kids on the first day in August when they're allowed to do that, all through the month of August. Like these schools know who all the 28s are already. And when the door opens to recruiting 28s, the big boys are going to offer and get commits. Everybody else goes a little bit behind them and a little bit slower. And then sometimes the IVs are a little bit slower because they have to get academic information. And then the D3s are slower. And then the next cat. So there's sort of a time frame on that. But the reality is that your junior year, if you said to me, when is the best time to go in order to really move it forward and get recruited, it would be in your junior year, summer of going into your junior year is what I
Yeah,
would suggest. Yes.
totally agree. I think junior year is going to be the case for most kids, unless you're kind of power four. If you're power four, high level mid major, it's probably the year before. I actually do know of a power four who, on that August first date with their 2027 class, they offered 50 kids, and they said the first 10 to say yes are coming here. So
I mean,
that's
listen, and I'll tell you now, this is a total side note to this, but it was really good. I'm friends with all the Yale coaches, Brian Ham, Corey Kane, Chris Wojcik. Buster Olney from ESPN did a story. I don't know if you saw this, Sam. It's a really good story
no, I didn't.
about Jack Ullman, who was a pitcher that was like freshman pitcher of the year in the Ivy League last year. And then all the behind the scenes stuff with all these burner phones and Power Four coaches trying to lure him out of Yale and the chaos that happens in this modern world
Yeah.
when someone bursts on the scene like that. And the kids stayed at Yale, and it's just a great read. Even it was informative to me to realize, oh my God, this is what's actually going on with
Yeah.
these
There's a
these
lot of
teams.
poaching that's going on for sure.
Exactly right. There's a lot of that stuff. Yeah, it's crazy, but all right, unless anyone else has anything, I appreciate you guys joining on a Wednesday night. I know late in the day, but I think hopefully you got something out of it, Sam. Thanks to you and everyone.
Thank you.
When I organize all this, I'll send to everyone that registered a copy of the recording.
Thank you, Wayne.
All right.
You're the
Thanks,
best.
Sam. Good night,
Best in the
all.
biz at
Good
this.
night. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
It's good.
Um, I think, hang on one second. I think people will still be on because I did want to